A Workaholic Tech CEO ignored her texts until one message changed everything. The digital clock on the massive mahogany desk flipped quietly to 2 a.m. Far below the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, the city was nothing more than a silent blur of golden streetlights and distant red taillights. Up here, inside the luxury penthouse, the isolation was absolute. Ethan Cole sat perfectly still in the dark. The only source of light was the harsh, cold glow of his laptop screen. It illuminated the sharp lines of his face and the deep, exhausted shadows under his eyes. He rubbed his temples slowly. As the chief executive officer of the most talked-about technology firm in the city, the weight of the world was constantly on his shoulders. He had not slept a full night in over 3 weeks. Suddenly, the absolute silence was broken. On the far edge of the desk, his phone vibrated against the wood. The screen lit up, casting a soft white square of light into the dark room. Buzz. A text message notification appeared. Then, a second one followed almost immediately. Did you eat dinner yet? Buzz. Are you working late again today? Ethan did not even reach for the device. He just leaned back heavily in his leather chair and let out a slow, cynical sigh. He knew exactly what this was. It was just another unsaved number, another stranger trying to force their way into his life. Ever since his company went public and his face appeared on financial magazine covers, his phone had become a target. Models, socialites, ambitious professionals. They all played the exact same game. They faked gentle concern. They sent sweet, carefully crafted messages in the middle of the night. They did not actually care about the man behind the desk. They only cared about his wealth, his status, and the power attached to his name. He had completely lost his faith in human sincerity. If it matters, they will call, Ethan said aloud. His deep voice echoed slightly in the empty, hollow room. If it does not, it is just noise. He finally reached out. His fingers hovered over the glass device. He intended to switch it off completely and throw it into the drawer. But right before his thumb pressed the power button, the screen flashed brightly one last time. A new message popped up from the exact same number. You forgot to drink water again, did you not? Your desk is probably covered in empty coffee cups by now. Please drink some water, Ethan. Ethan froze. His hand stopped moving entirely. His dark eyes darted across his desk. To his immediate left, 3 empty espresso cups sat in a messy, disorganized line. His throat felt incredibly dry. For one full second, the impenetrable armor he wore every day cracked open. How did this person know that? It was not a generic compliment. It was not a calculated, flirtatious advance. It was a fiercely specific, almost intimate observation of his worst habits. He stared down at the glowing text bubble. He felt a strange, uncomfortable tightness in his chest. A seed of curiosity took root in his tired mind. Who was really on the other side of that screen? However, years of built-up defenses quickly returned. Ethan flipped the phone face down on the cold wood. The room plunged back into the blue light of the laptop. He placed his hands back on the keyboard. Yet, for the rest of the night, he did not type a single word. The torrential rain pounded violently against the concrete of the city streets. It was an unforgiving, bitter storm that swallowed the city in absolute darkness. Maya pedaled her delivery bicycle through the flooded intersections. Her cheap yellow raincoat offered absolutely no protection against the freezing wind. Her boots were completely soaked, and her hands were numb. She finally pulled up to the towering, brilliantly lit glass entrance of the Apex, the most exclusive residential building in the financial district. She parked her bicycle with shaking hands. She pulled the crumpled delivery receipt from her pocket to check the penthouse number. Her breath caught sharply in her throat. The name printed on the order was Ethan Cole. Maya stared at the wet paper. She knew that name. She knew that exact address. Instead of walking straight into the luxurious lobby, she turned around. She ran through the freezing rain to a small, brightly lit convenience store on the corner of the street. She reached into her pocket and spent her last $5 for the shift to buy a cup of steaming ginger tea. Standing under the flickering store awning, she pulled a small notepad from her pocket. The paper was already damp. She quickly scribbled a note, Her handwriting rushed and messy from the violent shivering of her body. She handed the wet plastic bag to the immaculate concierge in the lobby. She did not dare to go up to the penthouse herself. She felt entirely out of place in the marble hall. She left immediately, stepping back out into the brutal storm. Up in the penthouse, the private elevator chimed softly. Ethan walked over and picked up the delivery bag. He carried it back to his silent, dark office. He expected to find only the cold sandwich he had ordered 2 hours ago. Instead, a wave of soothing warmth hit his face as he opened the bag. Beside the sandwich sat a sealed paper cup. Ethan frowned in confusion. He reached into the bag and pulled out a damp piece of paper taped to the lid. He held it under the sharp light of his desk lamp. The handwriting was erratic. Certain words were crossed out in a hurried, nervous manner, but the message was clear. The cold rain makes it easy to get sick. Please eat something warm before you continue working tonight. Ethan froze completely. He stared at the blue ink bleeding into the wet paper. His mind immediately raced back to the glowing screen of his phone. He remembered the text message from an hour ago. You forgot to drink water again, did you not? The cadence was identical. The specific, scolding but gentle phrasing, the careful grammar, the way the sender crossed out words on the paper matched the cautious, overthought rhythm of the text messages. It was the exact same voice. He looked at the delivery receipt. The driver was listed simply as Maya. The heavy iron walls of his skepticism suddenly collapsed. The person messaging him was not a wealthy socialite plotting to steal his fortune. It was not a calculating public relations agent trying to network. It was the delivery driver who had just carried his food through a violent storm. A woman who was likely freezing and exhausted, yet still took the time and her own meager money to buy him a warm drink. Ethan slowly sat down in his heavy leather chair. He picked up his phone. He opened the message thread from the unknown number. For the first time in many months, he did not analyze the situation. He did not calculate the risk. He typed 2 simple words. Thank you. He pressed send. Down on the street level, Maya stood under a narrow concrete awning. The rain was deafening. She was shivering violently, her wet clothes clinging to her tired body. Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her damp pocket. She pulled it out. The screen lit up her pale, exhausted face in the darkness. A single message glowed against the dark background. Thank you. She did not scream. She did not jump in the air like a naive teenager in a romantic comedy. She was simply too tired and ground down by life for that. Instead, she slowly leaned the back of her head against the rough brick wall. She closed her eyes. A deep, heavy breath escaped her trembling lips. A small, quiet smile broke through the exhaustion on her face. For the first time in a very long time, she did not feel entirely alone. The morning sun reflected harshly off the cold marble of the corporate lobby. Up on the 50th floor, the executive boardroom was completely silent. Julian stood at the head of the long glass table. His dark suit was immaculate. His eyes were devoid of any warmth. The projected growth is unacceptable, Julian stated. His voice was a surgical blade. You have 72 hours to fix the algorithm. If you cannot do it, I will find a team who can. The executives stared down at their legal pads. No one dared to breathe heavily. Inside this building, Julian was not a man. He was a flawless, ruthless machine, programmed only for profit. Julian dismissed the room with a sharp wave of his hand. As the heavy doors closed, the intimidating mask of the chief executive officer vanished. Julian walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Over the past few days, everything had changed. He no longer ignored the unknown number. Instead, he found himself waiting for the screen to light up. The phone vibrated against his palm. You have been in that meeting for 3 hours. Please tell me you are not surviving entirely on black coffee again. A genuine, unguarded smile broke across Julian's exhausted face. His thumbs moved quickly across the glass. If I do not drink coffee, the artificial intelligence of my company will go on strike. I am keeping the servers running. He pressed send. A strange warmth settled in his chest. 50 floors below, the lobby coffee shop was a chaotic symphony of hissing steam and shouting customers. Maya wiped down the heavy espresso machine. Her gray apron was dusted with flour and stained with dark roast. She felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. Stepping behind a tall display rack, she read his reply. A quiet laugh escaped her lips. The image of the notoriously cold billionaire making a dry, self-deprecating joke felt entirely surreal. She typed back quickly. "Tell your artificial intelligence to drink a glass of water, or its hardware will crash by noon." She stepped back to the counter. Through the massive glass walls of the shop, she had a perfect view of the main elevator banks. Suddenly, the private express elevator chimed loudly. Julian stepped out into the lobby. Two anxious assistants trailed closely behind him. He looked powerful, untouchable, and deeply isolated from the rest of the world. Maya froze. She clutched a damp rag tightly in her hand. She watched Julian pause in the middle of the grand lobby. He pulled his phone from his pocket. His assistants nervously stopped behind him. He looked down at the glowing screen. Even through the thick glass, Maya saw it clearly. He smiled. Her heart skipped a heavy beat. She had put that smile there, but as quickly as the happiness bloomed, reality crushed it. Maya looked down at her rough, burned hands. She looked at her cheap, stained canvas shoes. Then she looked back at the towering glass walls separating them. She understood the boundary perfectly. Julian lived inside a glamorous, impenetrable glass cage. She was just the invisible girl hired to clean the glass from the outside. They were breathing the exact same air, but they existed in two entirely different universes. Maya swallowed hard, turned around, and went back to wiping the dirty counter. The afternoon rush hour transformed the lobby coffee shop into a suffocating, deafening space. The sharp hissing of the espresso steam wands combined with the loud, overlapping chatter of corporate employees. The air was thick with the smell of roasted beans and hurried anxiety. Maya moved quickly behind the counter. Her muscles ached deeply from working a double shift, but she maintained a polite, mechanical smile for every customer. Suddenly, a heavy-set man in an expensive gray suit slammed his thick hand against the marble counter. "This order is completely wrong," the man shouted. His aggressive voice pierced through the ambient noise of the crowded shop. "I explicitly ordered almond milk. Are you entirely deaf, or are you just stupid?" Maya kept her voice calm and professional. She had dealt with entitled behavior before. "I sincerely apologize, sir. I will remake your drink immediately." "You people are all the exact same," the man sneered, his face turning red with unwarranted anger. Before Maya could reach for the plastic cup, the man aggressively swiped his hand across the counter. The large iced coffee violently splashed across Maya. The freezing, dark liquid soaked instantly into her gray apron and dripped down her white shirt. The heavy ice cubes shattered and scattered across the floor. The entire coffee shop fell into a stunned, uncomfortable silence. People stopped talking. The man threw a dirty bar rag onto the floor directly at her feet. "Clean my shoes. You splashed your garbage drink onto my Italian leather shoes. Get on your knees and clean them right now." Maya did not cry. She did not break down into weak tears. She swallowed the massive lump of humiliation rising in her throat. She desperately needed this job to pay for her mother's mounting medical bills. She slowly knelt down on the wet floor. She reached out her trembling hand to pick up the rag. As her fingers touched the damp fabric, the man intentionally stepped hard onto her hand with the sharp heel of his shoe. Maya gasped sharply in sudden pain. "Remove your foot." The voice was not loud. It was terrifyingly calm, freezing the air in the room. The heavy-set man turned around, ready to yell again. His arrogant expression instantly vanished. Julian stood there. He did not yell. He did not raise his fists. He projected an aura of absolute, crushing authority that demanded immediate submission. Julian stepped forward. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He calmly scanned the digital payment code sitting on the man's table, instantly locking in the customer's personal information and corporate digital footprint. Julian looked up, staring directly into the man's terrified eyes. He pointed a long, elegant finger toward the black dome of the security camera mounted directly above the register. "That specific camera angle records high-definition audio perfectly," Julian stated. His voice was a flat, dangerous monotone. "My corporate legal division costs $5 million a year to retain. They are extremely aggressive, and they never lose a case. The man took a nervous, shaking step back. You have exactly two choices, Julian continued relentlessly. You can apologize to my employee right now, or you can receive a court summons tomorrow morning for physical assault and public defamation. Choose quickly. The man turned completely pale. He looked at Julian, then looked down at Maya. He stammered a pathetic, broken apology, turned around, and practically ran out of the glass doors. Maya slowly stood up. Her clothes were heavily stained and clinging to her shivering body. Her crushed hand throbbed with intense pain. The cold air conditioning of the lobby hit her wet skin. Julian took a gentle step toward her. The intimidating armor he wore for the world disappeared completely. His dark eyes softened with genuine concern. He reached into his tailored suit jacket and pulled out a clean, folded white handkerchief. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. He reached out his hand to offer it to her. Maya looked at the expensive, pristine fabric. Then she looked up at Julian. He was immaculate. He was powerful. He was a king standing effortlessly in his own castle. Standing next to him in her ruined, cheap uniform, Maya felt entirely worthless. The overwhelming gratitude she should have felt was completely crushed by a suffocating wave of extreme shame. She felt like she was at the absolute bottom of society. She took a definitive step back, refusing to take the handkerchief. She could not bring herself to look into his eyes. "I am fine," Maya whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Excuse me, I need to leave my shift early." She turned her back to him and rushed away toward the employee break room, leaving Julian standing completely alone in the silent coffee shop. 4 days passed in absolute silence. Inside the small, suffocating bakery kitchen, Maya moved like a broken machine. She kneaded heavy dough. She scrubbed greasy baking sheets. She boxed pastries. She did not stop moving for a single second. If she stopped, she would have to think about the humiliating scene in the lobby. Her phone remained securely locked in her metal locker, completely dark and silent. She had retreated entirely into her protective shell, hiding from a world she felt she did not belong in. Across the city, the silence inside Julian's luxurious town car was deafening. The soundproof glass of the expensive vehicle blocked out all street noise. Julian sat in the expansive leather-back seat. A glowing tablet displaying quarterly financial projections rested on his lap, but his eyes were not reading a single number. He stared blankly at his phone, sitting on the center armrest. For his entire professional life, Julian controlled every interaction. He dictated terms. He set the pace. Now, the notoriously powerful chief executive officer was trapped in an agonizing state of passivity. He checked his empty message screen every 10 minutes. The absence of her texts was driving him to the edge of distraction. He could not focus during his critical board meetings. He could not sleep in his empty penthouse. He missed the quiet, unassuming warmth that had briefly illuminated his cold, calculated world. Finally, the tension broke his discipline. Julian picked up his phone. His thumb hovered over the digital keyboard. He swallowed his immense pride and typed a message, taking the initiative for the very first time. "Did you encounter something troublesome recently? Why are you not bothering me anymore?" He pressed send. He stared at the screen, waiting. Miles away, Maya sat on a rigid plastic chair in the employee break room. Her long shift had just ended. She pulled her phone from her locker. The screen illuminated with his message. She stared at the text. The memory of his pristine white handkerchief and his immaculate suit flashed in her mind, immediately followed by the memory of her own dirty, stained uniform kneeling on the floor. The crushing weight of their different realities settled heavily on her chest. She could not pretend anymore. She typed her response slowly, her fingers trembling slightly over the glass. "I'm afraid of bothering you too much. An ordinary person like me is not worth your attention. Thank you for saving me that day." She pressed send, turned off the screen, and walked out into the cold night. In the back of the town car, Julian read the glowing text message. He read it twice. Then he read it a third time. The words felt like a physical blow to his chest. He was a billionaire. He could buy entire corporations with a single phone call. He could destroy an arrogant man's life by simply pointing at a security camera. But as he stared at her heartbreaking, honest message, Julian realized a terrifying truth. All of his immense wealth, his absolute power, and his brilliant legal teams were completely useless here. He could not use his money to bridge the massive social divide that separated them. He could not force her to feel worthy of his time. He slowly lowered the phone. He turned his head and looked out the tinted window into the dark, empty city streets. He did not reply. She did not message him again. They both sank deep into a suffocating, heavy silence. The digital clock on the bedroom wall glowed with the time, 3 in the morning. The heavy silence inside Julian's luxury penthouse was shattered by a single, sharp vibration against the glass nightstand. Julian opened his eyes in the dark. He reached for his phone. A new message illuminated the screen from the number he had unknowingly memorized. "My mother wants to see you. We really need you right now." Attached to the message was a location pin. St. Jude Hospital, Emergency Department. Julian felt a sudden, freezing chill run down his spine. He did not overthink. He did not calculate the variables. The notoriously controlled chief executive officer, a man who scheduled his life down to the minute, rushed out the door wearing only casual clothes and a hastily grabbed coat. St. Jude Hospital greeted him with blinding, white fluorescent lights and the suffocating smell of strong antiseptic. Julian ran down the long corridor. His expensive leather shoes echoed sharply against the cold ceramic floor tiles. He saw Maya at the very end of the hallway. She sat on a rigid blue plastic chair. She looked smaller and more broken than ever before. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hands, usually so capable and steady, were trembling uncontrollably. When she saw Julian approaching, Maya stood up quickly. She opened her mouth to speak, but her breath caught in her throat. In that exact moment, the thick mental wall Julian had built over the last 10 years completely collapsed. He did not see a lowly delivery driver or an invisible coffee shop worker. He saw a young girl with sun-baked skin and a bright, familiar smile. A vivid memory struck Julian with the force of a physical blow. He remembered the cramped, leaking rental room in the distant suburbs a decade ago. He remembered the smell of hot rice and the only genuine warmth he had ever known as a poor, orphaned college freshman. Back then, Julian had absolutely nothing. Maya's parents had taken him in. They treated him like a son. He clearly remembered Maya pushing half of her own dinner bowl toward him on the nights he stayed up late to study. "You need to eat, Julian," the young Maya had told him with absolute sincerity. "You have to study hard and become successful, so you will never have to suffer again." They had been each other's light. He had promised to return. He had promised to repay everything. But then the prestigious scholarship to study in the United States arrived. The blinding glamour of the elite corporate world and the arrogant pride of his new success had caused Julian to bury his impoverished past. He cut all ties. He left his only benefactors behind to struggle in the harsh current of life. "My mother had a sudden brain hemorrhage," Maya whispered, her voice completely breaking. "I tried everything, but the surgical fees. I truly have no other options left." She had abandoned the very last piece of her pride to seek out the man who had abandoned her family 10 years ago. Julian did not say a single word. He walked straight to the billing counter. He pulled out his exclusive black credit card. "Arrange the absolute best surgical team immediately. Do whatever is necessary to save her," Julian ordered. His voice was flat and commanding, but his hands were shaking. His immense wealth and power made the hospital machinery move instantly. The paperwork was cleared. The specialists were summoned. Yet, the heavy tension between the two of them remained as thick as fog. Hours later, as Maya's mother was moved into the operating room, they stood facing each other in the quiet, empty corridor. "I am the one who sent those text messages," Maya finally said, breaking the terrible silence. "I saw your face in a financial magazine. I always cared about you, Julian. Even when you disappeared, I still had feelings for you." Julian stared at her. His heart twisted violently in his chest. He wanted to step forward. He wanted to pull her into his arms and beg for her forgiveness. He wanted to confess that he had never truly forgotten that warm rental room. But the deeply ingrained instinct of a corporate leader took over. He was terrified of vulnerability. He was terrified of facing the immense guilt of his own past betrayal. Maya saw the hesitation in his dark eyes. She offered a small, bitter smile. "But look at us now," Maya said, drawing a cruel, necessary boundary. "You are a god standing high above the city. I am just someone drowning at the absolute bottom. I am only saying this out loud so I can put it away forever. There is an uncrossable abyss between us now." Julian clenched his fists tightly by his sides. His arrogance and his psychological defense mechanisms completely overpowered his heart. "You are right," Julian replied. His voice was as cold as ice. "We should only maintain our old friendship. I will cover all the medical expenses for your mother as a way to repay my debt." The words left his mouth effortlessly, but deep inside his chest, something completely and irreversibly shattered. He turned his back and walked away. He left Maya standing alone in the dark hospital hallway. They both knew, in that agonizing moment, that this deep fracture might never actually heal. The morning sun filtered through the white curtains of the hospital room. Ethan stood by the bed, holding a simple basket of fruit. He had removed his stiff suit jacket, his collar casually unbuttoned. He looked nothing like the ruthless chief executive officer the world knew. Maya's mother slowly opened her eyes. She stared at him, a weak but genuine smile forming on her pale face. "Is that really you, Ethan?" she whispered. "The skinny college student? I used to tease Maya constantly. I never understood what she saw in you back then." Maya stood nearby, her face flushing bright red. "Mother, please," she murmured. Ethan laughed. It was a relaxed, warm sound he had not made in years. "You were right, ma'am. I was just skin and bones. Thank you for feeding me when I had nothing." In that small hospital room, Ethan felt a pure familial warmth he thought he had lost forever. A week later, Ethan called Maya into his towering corporate office. He did not hand her a charity check. Instead, he slid an employment contract across his glass desk. "Logistics and customer relations," Ethan stated professionally. "You have immense patience and practical sense, but you need formal training." Maya held the contract tightly. She did not want a fairy tale rescue. "I will not let you down," she said with quiet determination. "And I will repay the medical debt as soon as I can." "Just focus on the work," Ethan replied. The following weeks were grueling. This was no Cinderella story. Maya received zero special treatment. She arrived before dawn and left long after dark. She buried herself in complex shipping protocols and difficult customer accounts. From his glass office above, Ethan watched her. He saw her massage her tired temples, only to sit up straight and keep going. Her relentless grit and intelligence earned his profound, silent respect. One afternoon, Ethan walked past her workspace. Maya did not shrink away. She did not look down at her shoes in shame. "Good afternoon, boss," Maya said, her voice confident and steady. "The new logistics report is in your inbox. We have an issue with the secondary shipping vendor that you need to review." Ethan stopped. He looked directly into her eyes. He did not see a broken girl anymore. He saw a proud, independent professional. "Excellent work, Maya," he nodded. The uncrossable abyss between them was finally gone. In its place, a solid foundation of mutual respect had begun to grow. The restaurant sat on the 40th floor of a classic tower. The atmosphere was incredibly quiet, bathed in soft yellow light. There were no flashy candles or extravagant flower arrangements on the table. There was only the gentle sound of a grand piano, mixing with the distant city lights below the massive glass windows. Ethan sat across from Maya. She wore a simple but elegant dress. She radiated the quiet confidence of an outstanding professional who had just survived a brutal probationary period. "Congratulations," Ethan said. He raised his crystal wine glass. "Your logistics report was the only document the board of directors could not find a single flaw in." Maya smiled. Her dark eyes sparkled with genuine, earned pride. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to prove myself." The dinner proceeded with a comfortable ease they had never experienced before. When the dessert arrived, Ethan suddenly became very quiet. He slowly placed his wine glass down on the white tablecloth. He reached into the inner pocket of his tailored suit jacket and pulled out a small, familiar object. It was the crumpled delivery note from that freezing, rainy night. The blue ink was slightly faded, but the paper had been carefully laminated to protect it from the passage of time. Ethan placed it on the table and gently pushed it toward Maya. "Many years ago, when I had absolutely nothing, your family gave me a place to hide from the rain," Ethan began. His deep voice lowered, thick with raw emotion. "But do you know what is far more terrifying than poverty? It is the absolute emptiness of having everything in the world, yet feeling completely dead inside." He looked directly into her eyes. He completely stripped away the cold, intimidating armor of the powerful chief executive officer. "A few months ago, I was at the absolute bottom of mental exhaustion," Ethan confessed softly. "Your text messages, that clumsy but incredibly sincere concern, were the only things pulling me back to reality. The truth is, I am not saving you. You are the one who saved me. Please, do not push me away anymore, Maya." Maya looked down at the carefully preserved paper note. It was undeniable proof of his silent, enduring appreciation. A profound warmth spread through her chest. It completely burned away the lingering insecurities and the massive class divide that had once separated them. She did not say a single word. She just smiled brightly. Under the dim, romantic lights of the quiet restaurant, Maya deliberately reached across the table. She firmly took his hand in hers. The sprawling city outside the window continued to shine brilliantly. But for them, the entire world had shrunk down to the quiet warmth of this single touch. It was not a fairy tale ending. It was a genuine, mature, and deeply human new beginning. Sometimes, the most profound connections happen when we strip away the titles, the wealth, and the walls we build around ourselves. True love isn't a fairy tale. It's finding someone who sees your worth in the dark. Did Ethan and Maya's journey resonate with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more emotionally grounded, psychologically rich tales that explore the true depths of the human experience, please subscribe to the Soul Stirring Stories channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a chapter. Until next time, keep your heart open.